let's move on. Let's talk about formats and purposes. All right, so what are some formats that might be tested? Let's look at some of the past year questions. In 2019, it was an informal letter, and the purpose was to invite your friend to watch a movie. Okay. In 2018, it was a formal email to report an incident to the discipline master. In 2017, it was an informal letter to your cousin asking him to participate in a competition. And in 2016, it was a formal letter to the manager of a community club asking a friend to for a friend to receive an award. Okay, so yesterday I had students asking me, "Oh, teacher, I see that there's a pattern. It is formal, informal, formal, informal. That means this year is going to be formal." Is that true? No, okay, we cannot predict like this. It really can be anything. All right, so don't try and track back and say there is a pattern. In fact, if there's a pattern, that means this year maybe they will purposely put something completely different just to like throw you off because they know that you expect a formal letter. All right, so we see that there are many different kinds of formats. Okay, let's look at this. All right, so these are your formats. Your format is just, is it a letter? Is it an email? Is it a report? Is it formal or informal? Reports are always formal. Okay, because you write a report to someone who is in charge of something to tell them about something that it has happened in an official capacity. So you could be writing a report as a student, you could be writing a report as an employee. Okay, these are all possible scenarios. 99.9% of the time, that means almost always, they will not ask you to pretend to be someone very, very different. That means they will not ask you to write from the perspective of an adult. No, they will always ask you to write from the perspective of a student like yourself. Very rarely they will decide to do something so like strange. Okay, is it possible? Yeah, like 0.1% possible. Okay, but not likely. All right, so these are your formats. Now, your purposes. Why do we write these things? It could be to complain about something. It could be to compliment someone for something. It could be telling someone something that has happened. It could be a request or it could be an invitation. So you can match anything on the left with anything on the right. So what do I mean by this? You can write a formal letter to complain about something, right? For example, I went to a restaurant and I found a cockroach in my food, so I'm writing a formal letter to the restaurant to complain about this terrible incident. Okay? You can also write a formal letter to compliment someone for something. For example, again, you went to a restaurant and the waiter was so helpful. They because you have a peanut allergy maybe, and you informed the waiter, and the waiter took care of you and was very sure to get you, the proper food, even though it was a very complicated order. They were very patient, so you want to compliment this waiter for being so helpful. So that's a formal letter complimenting someone. It could be a formal letter that recounts something that happened. It means telling someone about an incident. Maybe, for example, like just now, you're saying, okay, something happened. Maybe something happened right in front of a shop. So you're writing a formal letter to the shop owner to tell them what had happened. All right. It could be a formal letter to request for something, and it can be a formal letter to invite someone for something. For example, if you are writing a letter to your piano teacher to invite your piano teacher for a special event, maybe, or whatever it is. Okay, so that's a formal letter to invite someone. Now, in the same way, an informal letter can be used for all these different things as well. So if it's an informal letter requesting something, maybe you are writing an informal letter to your uncle because your uncle has asked you, Daniel, what would you like for your birthday? Let me know. So you're writing a letter to your uncle to say, oh, I would really like this present. I saw it in the shops and, it's got all these features and functions and I thought it was great. And I would really appreciate it if you could buy this present for me for my birthday. So that's an informal letter requesting something. Okay, so applies for everything. Letter and email are pretty much, honestly, it's the same. No difference. At PSLE level, it's the same. You start with dear whoever, you end off with yours sincerely or yours faithfully or love or cheers or whatever. The format is just about the same. Okay, report is the only one that is different. Okay, so these are formats on the left, purposes on the right. Now, please note that this is not exhaustive. What does exhaustive mean? It means that they could come up with a lot of things that are not here. A couple years ago, they gave a postcard format. They said, write a postcard to your whoever to ask them for something, for example. Now, a postcard is actually just an informal letter. Do you write formal postcards? No, a postcard in itself is something that is informal. Okay, so it's kind of a way to, I don't want to say trick you, but it's to test you and to stretch you a little bit. Do you know what a postcard really is? If you know what a postcard is, you would know that it's actually just an informal letter. It's the same. But a lot of people will panic and go, oh, what is an informal letter? Oh my God, I don't know what that is. And then they panic and then they don't write properly. Okay, so don't panic, don't worry. I think use your common sense and don't worry. Okay, just breathe and move on. All right, you've got to go. All right, so do you know when an email or letter should be formal or informal? I'm going to give you a very simple tip. Okay, let's try. Before I give you a tip, let's try this. Okay, so formal or informal here. A letter to your father asking him to participate in a school father-child race with you. Should this be a formal invitation, an informal invitation, or you're not sure at all? Okay, I'm going to circle things, okay? It's a letter, so of course a letter is either formal or informal. It's a letter to whom? Your father. For what? To participate in the school father-child race. With whom? With you. You are the child. Okay? So should this be formal or informal? So a lot of this stuff is distracting. Does it matter whether it's a letter or email? Doesn't matter. Does it matter what you are asking? Not really. Not really for now. What is the most important thing here? Who are you writing to? Because he is your father, it is considered an informal invitation. Okay? So it should be informal. You're writing to your own dad. It's not really formal. You don't speak in a formal way to your own father, right? Even if it's the father writing to you, is it still informal or formal? It's still informal. When you write to your own child, it's an informal situation. Okay? All right, let's try another one. An email to your school's head librarian suggesting some of your favorite books to be added to the school library. Is this a formal request or an informal request? Definitely, this is a formal request. Why is it a request? Because you are asking her to please add these books into the school library because you like them so much. So it's a request. You're asking for something. It's an email. And of course, the important bit here that you need to focus on is that it is to your school's head librarian. So because you are writing as a student to someone who is in a position of authority, it has to be formal. Okay, you're writing it as a formal request. All right, let's try this one. Now, this one's a little bit tricky. Okay, an email to your ex-kindergarten teacher whom you are close to, inviting her to your family's Chinese New Year gathering. So this is a little bit tricky. What do you think the answer is here? Is it a formal invite or an informal invitation? The answers are mostly in. One more person waiting for Dorothy. Okay, so think carefully. I know just now I did say that it doesn't matter. A lot of the other things don't matter, but in this one, you need to look at everything there. Okay, I don't think it matters whether she's a head teacher or not. She's still a teacher, but she is no longer your teacher, right? She's your ex-teacher. Jada, to a family event. So because she is no longer your teacher, you have become close to her. It's sort of like she's a family friend. You're inviting her to your family's Chinese New Year gathering. It's like writing to a family friend, right? Like someone who you're close to. Your family's, in the first place, your family's Chinese New Year gathering, is that a formal event? Yes. Do you sit around your dining table in like suit and tie and, you know, with your pinky in the air? No, okay, you know what I mean? It's not a formal event. It's not a It's something that is supposed to be warm and happy and everyone makes a lot of noise and is rowdy, like, have reunion dinners or like family dinners or Hari Raya dinners where everyone's like, happy and yelling and running all over the place and enjoying yourself. Okay, so it's because of the context here, and that's why context is important. She is no longer your teacher. Okay, you are now close to her like a family friend. Your interaction with her is no longer as a student and teacher, and you are inviting her to a casual event. Now, this is my other question. If the question becomes an email, let me type it out so that it's clearer for you to see, okay? An email to your ex-kindergarten teacher whom you are close to, inviting her as a guest of honor for your school's Teachers' Day ceremony to thank her for for inspiring you. Okay, now is this formal or informal? Yes, Jaden.
What is the opening sentence for formal letter?
For opening, you sometimes, okay, depends on the context. We will go into that also next week. Okay, so don't worry, we will get there. It is the SIT writing module is 5 lessons long, so we will get there. It's a long journey. Okay, if you are not sure, okay, you're kind of stuck and you really don't know, is it supposed to be formal or informal? Then you have no choice but to go somewhere a little bit in between. Try to be a little bit more formal sounding but warm. Do you know what smart casual means? If you go somewhere and then you say you must be smart casual, you have to wear like, at least you have to wear nice jeans and you cannot wear torn pants or like, shorts. That's kind of what smart casual is. So you want to try and aim for somewhere in the middle if you are really, really, really not sure. Okay? But try and decide on one thing. Yes, Nana? Right, last one, okay, an email to a restaurant manager informing them about a positive experience you had at one of their outlets. Is this formal or informal? It's definitely a compliment, right? It's a compliment letter. You are complimenting them for this positive experience. But is it formal or is it informal? What do you think? So I see 4 answers are in. 2 more answers. Firdaus and Dorothy, what do you think? An email to a restaurant manager. Okay, I'm going to collect the answer. I don't have much time left. The answer is yes, you are all right. It is definitely a formal letter, email. Okay, so a formal email to compliment them for a good experience. It has to be formal. They are in a position of authority. You are making sure that they know how well that their staff did or the good experience you had. Okay, good job. So this is what we're going to do very quickly, a very easy tip for you. Generally, most of the time, if you call the recipient by their first name or by an affectionate term, then it's going to be an informal piece of writing. So what do I mean by first name or an affectionate term? First name means you call them by their name. You call them Jaden, Firdaus, Daniel, Dorothy. This is the first name. Okay, so like Gary, then it's going to be informal because they are your peer, your friend. If you call the person, again, by their first name here, but with an affectionate term, auntie, uncle, cousin George, or grandma, because these are all affectionate terms, uncle, then this is going to be informal. Yes, Nana? Okay? Most of the time, very generally, this will all be informal. Okay? What are some exceptions? If you are writing to your peer, for example, if I am a student and my task is to write a letter to Jaden to inform Jaden that the school has chosen him as the school's ambassador for the new primary 1 students who are coming in. Then it becomes a formal piece of writing, right? Because you're writing as a school representative. Okay? That's possible. All right, but generally, most of the time, if it's first name, informal. So you have to look at several things. You look at the recipient, you look at the context. If you are writing on a personal note, of course, it's informal. If you're writing on behalf of a school or of an organization, it has to be formal. So same the other way, if you call them by their last name, preceded by an honorific or by a title. What do I mean by that? So this is their last name, their surname, like Ling or Wong or Kang or Tan, okay, or Muhammad or whatever it is you're using, Mr. Nathan. This is your honorific. You're calling them Mr. or Mrs. or Miss, okay, or Doctor, or what else are there? I think that's about it, right? Okay, so Mrs. or if you say Ms. Nathan, okay, or all these things are honorifics or titles, okay, and you use their surname and not their first name. Professor is an honorific, you're right. So if like Professor Wong, yes, then it's an honorific, okay? And again, because of the word professor, that talks about someone who is professional, right? Someone who is in a position of authority. So most likely it would be formal, okay? What else? If you call someone, you're not sure who you're writing to, like you're writing to the manager, and you say, dear sir or ma'am, it would be, this is a title, it is formal, okay? The manager, the president, the principal. These are all titles that will tell you that it's professional, it has to be formal. Okay? What are some exceptions? Like, for example, sometimes you may call family friends Mrs. Tan. That's possible. You may call them Mr. whoever or Mrs. whoever. Like just now, the kindergarten teacher, maybe you still call her Mrs. Singh. Okay, so you want to make sure that even though you call them by Mrs., it still could be informal. But most of the time, that's why I use the word here, generally, most of the time, it should be formal. Okay? All right, so let's look at some common mistakes.